Hi, everyone. We are so excited to get to talk about Chapter 7 and all of the fun things that we read about for this week. My name is Mackenzie Bannister. I am studying Family and Community Services through Michigan State, and I'm joined by Sasha. You want to introduce yourself and tell us which university you're going to school through?
Yes. So my name is Sasha Gibson, and I am doing my Family and Community Services through Oklahoma State University.
Oh, nice. So we're studying through your alma mater right now. Love it. So are you local to Oklahoma?
Yes, I am. I've lived it's a small town called Fairfax all my life.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So since you grew up in Oklahoma, you probably heard about the Tulsa Race Massacre that was talked about in this chapter.
Yes.
How do you feel like
definitely.
that trauma influenced your local communities?
So living in Oklahoma, and being from a small town, I only live about an hour and 30 minutes away from Tulsa. So in school, our teachers would always do like study sessions on the anniversary of the massacre. Being that my hometown is small and it's called Fairfax, Oklahoma, and it resides in Osage County, there are many Native Americans who live in Fairfax, some of which are descendants of the Osage murders, which some of you may or may not know about. I'm an Osage tribal member myself and take pride in who and what I am. The murders happened due to discovery of oil that was found on the Osage Nation reservation. The murders took place in hopes of inheriting the Osage people's oil rights. So after a little background of my town, I can definitely see that there are still racial disparities going on in today's day and age. Some people within the community are still living in the 1920s, so to speak. There are still matters that are discriminatory that occur in the present time. Cultural trauma that my people have went through during the past was more so for nothing, as there were still small-minded people who are opinionated, which you run into whenever and wherever you go. So the 1920s was such a long time ago, and myself and other Osage peoples are still experiencing generational and cultural trauma that happened over a century ago. Americans who have experienced this trauma, Native Americans who have experienced this trauma are rightfully upset and outraged by it. Some problems with other people make the whole situation worse. So hopefully sometime in the near future, all who have experienced the historical, cultural, and generational trauma are able to put the past in the past and not let it hold them down anymore, so that they're able to use their experience as a muse to educate and make a difference in their culture, so that future generations won't have to deal with discrimination and generational trauma that our ancestors and present Osages have had to deal with. If there was no trauma, then there would be no resilience, and resilience is a key factor in the succession of my tribe and its people.
Wow, that is powerful. I had no idea that you had such an insanely close tie to what happened. And, you say 100 years ago, 100 years is so long ago, but that's really only 2 to 3, maybe 4 generations ago.
Yep.
And I know that stuff that my grandpa went through still affects our family, and it was mild compared to what your people have endured. Thank you so much for not only for sharing that, but for emphasizing the hope that you have. I feel like this chapter was really, it was full of a lot of that. As not too long ago in 2013, only 4% of pediatricians were screening for ACEs, and now I feel like it's a fairly common topic of discussion, but I might be biased because of the field we're in.
Yes.
But wow, that's incredible. And speaking, oh yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to share that there is a movie coming out that Martin Scorsese is directing. They did filming around the Osage area, the Osage Reservation area. I live on 4th Street in Fairfax, and they were recording parts of the movie on my street, and there was Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, actors like that.
No way.
Yes. So that movie
God.
should be coming out either the end of this year or early 2024. So if you guys want to be on the lookout for that, it is going to be released soon.
Is there a trailer out for it yet? Do you know?
Yes, there is. It's
Okay, that is awesome.
Yeah, you can just look up the Osage Murders movie, and it'll probably pop up. And Leonardo DiCaprio his name is Mr. Hell, so he's the one, kind of the ringleader that orchestrated the murders of the Osage peoples.
Oh, that's gutting. We'll have to try to link a trailer to that, or the trailer in this post, because that sounds awesome. Another thing that this chapter talked about was the Payne County Resilience Coalition. And that's a very recent thing. It was a grassroots effort to address trauma locally. And so I'll give the cliff notes of it. So they had 4 different work groups, right? They had education, which was made up of principals and school leaders, teachers, etc. They had healthcare, which was made up of pediatricians, behavioral health, and that. They had law enforcement, and they had policymakers and legislators. Okay, so they had those 4 work groups that looked around their community and realized that ACEs were abundant and ACEs were a contributing factor to a lot of community ills that they had. And so they spent about 3 years going about in their own work groups, collecting data from their communities and getting to work essentially. And after about 3 years, each work group was able to implement their own awesome trauma-informed solution. In education, principals held training sessions on trauma-sensitive topics, and they implemented programs that they adapted from other communities, so they didn't reinvent the wheel. And pediatricians started screening parents for ACEs, which was phenomenal. And I think that's something that's becoming more and more common. I know I have I just aged my 2-year-old. I have a 4-year-old. No, I don't. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. And every time I go to a pediatrician or go to a new pediatrician, I have to fill out this form talking about my childhood. So that's becoming a lot more common, even in Idaho, where I live. Then the law enforcement, I think this was phenomenal. They identified an evidence-based trauma-sensitive training program for police officers. And Oklahoma State staff and faculty took part in it as well, and local therapists conducted those trainings. Finally, policymakers and legislators, they were able to push Oklahoma Senate Bill 1517 through, and it became law, to create a task force that recommended and guided implementation of trauma-informed programs in each state government service sector. So now, I don't remember what year that this was initiated, but it's becoming a more and more mainstream topic of discussion, how ACEs impact our lives and how to foster peace. And in Idaho, so I live in Caldwell. It's a part of Canyon County, and it's one of the more ghetto counties of Idaho. Idaho's only been a state for 130 years. And Caldwell, Nampa area used to kind of be considered the armpit of Idaho, right? A lot of gang activity, fairly run down. And in just a few years ago, well, I guess 5 years ago, the pandemic kind of warped time for me. But in 2018, there was, St. Luke's, which is a local nonprofit hospital. They got a huge grant from Micron, a local tech company, and they formed 2C Kids Succeed. 2C is the abbreviation for Canyon County. And they have very similar health work groups, actually. They have education, they have healthcare, there's local legislators on there, and there's also a lot of local corporations and nonprofits that are involved in 2C Kids Succeed. And the pandemic really pushed back how far they've taken it so far, that it really pushed back their goals for this program. So they're still in the early stages and more in the data collecting stage, but they've already implemented a Hope Week where they create murals with the kids. They give kids all over the valley notes of hope. They have published radio programming, encouraging parents to take care of themselves and to be aware of signs that they're overwhelmed and that they need to reach out to their network, and give them a network too to reach out to. So that's been a really phenomenal undertaking as far as Idaho goes, because we rank 5th among the states for children with 3 or more ACEs. So this is one of many steps that's being taken throughout the state to try to finally address that. So anyway, I love that both of our communities, I feel, are taking steps in the right direction. And this chapter kind of reminisces to the hole in the bridge from chapter 1, right? And it claims that we've found it. There's the pair of aces tree, that diagram in the back of the chapter. I thought that was super cool. And if you're cool with it, I want to read a quote from that before we dive into addressing repairing the bridge. It said, "The tree is rooted in adverse community environments, reflecting the hostile conditions created by poverty, discrimination, and lack of opportunity. The branches and leaves of that tree, adverse childhood experiences, almost seem inevitable when depicted growing from the soil." So where would you personally start repairing the bridge with your training in family crisis and trauma, and how do we enrich the soil and foster more positive outcomes?
So I work with the Osage Nation. They have a couple different departments. I work in the Child Care and Development Services department. We offer some parenting classes, and I think a lot of the times parents don't know where to go to look for those classes to prepare for everything.
Right.
So I personally would want to strongly encourage and push for expecting and parents that already have children to look for a parenting program. There are many, many different ones that they could look into to enroll in, so that they're able to further their confidence in becoming and being a parent. So with the skills that they receive from these programs, parents can be prepared and ready to take on the good, bad, and challenging situations that are inevitable when it comes to parenting. Being prepared and learning these new skills can prevent bad things from happening, ultimately finding the hole in the bridge and stopping children from falling in the river, preventing the fall before it ever has a chance of happening.
Love that. And so you believe that, especially in your community, the tools to repair the bridge more or less already exist. It's just that a lot of people don't know that they exist. So you want to connect them to that. Yeah, I agree. I feel like our field, the family community services, we have a lot of strength and very big hearts. But I think that one strength we don't have as a majority is marketing.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I think that putting more emphasis on that and getting the word out in a way that shows parents, like, look, we're not blaming you. Just like the reading said, we're not gonna hold you over the coals for having a crappy childhood and not knowing any better than what you've been exposed to. We're here to empower you to improve your life as well as the lives of your children. Yeah, and as far as my 2 cents, we recently had an incredible opportunity to see that stuff like the child tax credit works really, really well. Poverty is not the only source of adverse childhood experiences, but it does significantly dramatize the effects, and it significantly reduces opportunities for resilience and for quote-unquote bouncing back. So the child tax credit worked really, really well when it was implemented during the pandemic to address childhood hunger, significantly addressed Latino and Black children in poverty as well. And it lifted about 1 million children out of deep poverty for, the short year that it was in place. I think community schools are also a really great thing that United Way has been implementing in my area that I would love to see more of. They do a great job of presenting resources and free health care and all sorts of things that families in poverty really benefit from. And I agree with you as well. I think I've said for years that my dream program would be something that offers judgment-free parent education and connection to existing community resources. So I love that we're on the same page in that aspect. But, wow, I think this chapter was awesome. I knew it would be when I picked it. I love the chapters that tell us, okay, we've learned that FIT has hit the shan and continues to impact our children in negative ways, and this is how we can have hope. This is how we can empower our children, our communities, to lift one another up and create a better future. So thank you so much for talking with me about this, Sasha.
Yes, it was awesome. I loved all of the questions.
Yeah, this was good. So I hope that everyone enjoyed this chapter as much as we did. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, guys.